right.
Just to let everybody know, David has got the prints and he's only going to be judging the prints. He's not going to be judging them off the DPIs.
What happened to number one? Oh, right.
Right, that's the first one, isn't it, now?
Yeah. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, good to
Yeah,
go.
it's all yours, David.
Right, good evening, Chapel. I hope you're all sitting comfortably, because you're in for a rocky ride, I'll tell you.
Oh, dear.
No. The first thing I must say about the prints is I'm quite impressed with all the presentation, all the mounting and the standard of the printing, you know, the cutouts. Either you're using a professional or you've got some really good photographers there. But anyway, we're not judging that. So let's start with the first one, which is a spring walk. This, I think, has got a lot going for it. There's quite a bit of work done in here. And, you know, I like to see something of the author in the picture. And most of the composition I like, you know, the path, the position of the ladies and the house at the end. I think it together with the layer that's on it, and it's actually printed on a kind of a textured paper, and it's very good. So we're going to start off at the top. Now, you don't want marks, so that goes in the gold band.
Thank you, David.
Right, After the Storm, Lee Town. The print has got a lot more colour than the image you see on the screen. It's a good landscape, and one of the things that I always look for in landscapes, because I don't find them easy, is obviously you need some quality of light. Now, the digital image doesn't show that, but the print shows a really kind of atmospheric light after the storm. And it's got a lot of good attributes to it. I like the way the author's included some of the foreground, and you fall into the picture and you've got that heavy sky. So I think on balance, it's very good. But when I'm looking at it closely, I think what annoys me perhaps a lot, not a lot, but at the bottom, you see that small mound of grass across the bottom. And I just wondered whether if the photographer had stepped a bit nearer to the edge, not too near, and kind of got that fence that's coming in from the right across to the left-hand corner, I think it would have kind of balanced the picture on the way that the trees on the right-hand side of the slope and the trees on the left. So it's got a certain quality of light, I will admit. I'm a little intrigued by the light area to the right above the trees. It's much more pronounced on the digital than it is on the print. On the print, it's much more subdued, which is probably better. So on the basis of that, and given what I'm looking at, that I'm going to put in where am I? In the silver band.
Yeah, okay, David.
Right, the next one is Defying the Tide. Again, a mono print. I like the simplicity of this. The author's got a good composition, and the fact that there's no sky in it looks good. We've obviously got a triangle, which is quite strong. And I like the kind of the exposure that's given this soft ethereal look on the water. And I think it improves it slightly. It's only a small thing, but you see on the front groin, we can actually see as though the water's actually moving, which is helpful. You know, the exposures just caught that. It's probably, the tonal range is pretty good. We've got some, you know, decent whites to decent blacks. But I think the simplicity of this, it gives that kind of feeling where you stood by watching that. And that comes out to me quite clearly. You know, you can feel the tide rushing in, and that ethereal look of the water gives you that kind of mystical look. So that one I'm also going to place in the gold band. Be intrigued to know what marks are, wouldn't you? Right, what's the next one? All right, the emerged hawker. Yeah, again, technically, you know, a nature shot that fits all the nature rules. The hawker's sharp. It's not on the print is far better than the digital image. It's got the tones are much better, and the background is a little darker and more subdued. So the print works very well. It's good size. Not a lot I can say about it. It fits all the things. So that one goes in the top band as well, in the gold band. Let me have a look where we're up to. This one is, oh, right, yes. This is the Eurasian Jay. Autumn catching, right. Again, a good nature shot. The background is a lot better. Forget the background on the digital. It wouldn't work with that kind of yellow. It's much more subdued on the print. One thing that I was taught when I started learning to shoot nature a long time ago with a naturalist is kind of the size of the bird in the frame. And you've probably had judges bore you to silly with this over the years, what size the bird should be in the frame. To me, it doesn't really matter that much. This is quite big, but so what? You know, it doesn't really matter. The detail on the bird is good. It's actually doing something of a fashion, although it's not eating much. It's actually got the nuts. So yeah, I think that as a nature shot, I do like the background on the bird. So that one also goes in the gold band. So you're starting off with a bang tonight.
Not we just, eh?
Yeah.
Got somebody at the outside.
Sorry, somebody. Who's talking? Somebody say something. If you want to speak, speak.
Have a look.
Just put it outside.
Yeah.
Are we all right now?
Not sure what's going off, David, but yeah, carry on.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm quite open to being interactive. If people want to jump in when I'm saying things, that was prints up. I don't mind. Anyway, Ferns and Falls. The print is. Oh, I've got a dog. I'm being attacked. Right. Ferns and whatever it is. Ferns and Falls. Yeah, I find this. It's difficult. I do like the way the author's treated the water down the middle with a long exposure. I think this is the way to do this. But on the print, I do find the contrast a little heavy. The green leaves are much more prominent on the print than they are on the digital. And I just wondered whether it takes away from me the kind of the feel of the picture was into the waterfall and the soft flowing water. It's kind of hemming in on it on the print, and I was wondering whether a little wider viewpoint would have helped, but I find the tonal range is a little contrasty for me, so that one, I'm afraid, goes in the silver band. Right, and the next one is Peer View. Again, I think every author these days tries shooting water with slow shutter speeds. The only thing, if you look at this, it's interesting. The digital image leans to the left, but the print is quite good because the horizon's in the middle. I think I like the idea of this. It's let down for me is that in the print, all the pier top is not as detailed as you can see there, and it's blocked out a lot more and it loses the impetus. So therefore it's looking a bit flat as opposed to being, quite honestly, you know, it needs to kind of lift it out a bit, because when you walk into this picture, you get the feel of the sea and you get the, you know, the impression of the pier overhead and the end of the pier, that's what's left of it at the end, very good. But the print is just a little flat now. It's printed on a kind of matte paper, maybe on a glossy paper it would have come out, but I think it needs the pier to be, you know, a little more contrasting, a little more detail, which you can see in the digital, but not in the print, I'm afraid. So that one also goes in this, what am I up to on that? That goes in the silver band as well. All right, the first portrait of the evening, which is Portrait of a Princess. Again, the author's done very well here, actually, to get, you know, hands are a problem, and holding the necklace gives us quite a good shape to the picture. The background in the print is a lot more in keeping with the skin tones of the model, which are a lot warmer than the digital. Every time I look at portraits, I always look for the eyes, and this one, the eyes are quite sharp, but I just can't help thinking is, do we get the feeling of the personality of this girl? Is the lady actually, you know, wistfully looking far away, wondering for something? I think that comes over. Sometimes, you know, eye contact is good, but maybe in this case, she's obviously thinking of something, and it comes across there. What is a slight problem to me is as you look at the picture on the left side on the print, the skin tones go quite dark, where on the right side, they're quite light. And there's this contrast across the range of the face from left to right. I think it probably just needed a little bit of kind of fill-in light on the left, because there's a big shadow in the neck. But otherwise, I think it's an excellent portrait. And that, where did I put that one? That one, I think, the Portrait of a Princess. It's the good portrait, so we'll put that in the top band, the gold band. Okay. I did say I like to see something of the author in the picture. This is quite humorous. Again, it's got a good range of tones in it. It's all set up. It's a simple shot. Anything with like tabletop kind of, I think, you know, the author has all the lighting and that in their control. You're in charge of everything on a tabletop, so it works quite well. The fish is losing a little bit of detail in the top on the print, on the scales, but nothing to be upset about. I think, you know, you judge the picture as you see it. It's quite close. There's no space around it, and it brings a bit of humor to it. So it made me smile. So obviously the picture's connected with me, because as you're probably aware, and I think I mentioned this to Keith when he was in, Ansel Adams has a saying that there are always two people in every picture. One's obviously the photographer, and the other is the viewer. So the viewer has to kind of get on the photographer's length. So this one I thought was not quite there. A little more space around it to me would have helped, but not a lot. So that one goes, where am I? Where are we? In the silver band. The next one is Seaweed in Stone, and it's that way up. On the print, it's up the other way up. Never mind. It's going from top left, bottom right. The print is. Again, not a lot in this, very simple picture, but I thought when I looked at it, I thought that the tonal range, the colour could have been a little more lifted out a bit. The background stone and the seaweed are a bit too close in kind of the tonal range on the print, but on the digital, they are a lot better, and the digital is actually coming up better, but that's unfortunate. The print is not as exciting as that. Composition-wise, it got in for this diagonal. As I say, it's top left to bottom right on the print, which is good. And the yellow lines that are in the stone need to be emphasized a little more in the print, as far as I can see. It's just a little, obviously, a problem in the printing. It just needs lifting a little to give us, a better tonal range and a lot more interest. So that also goes in the silver. Not a lot wrong with all these prints, but you're all competing against each other. Then we have another landscape, which is Tarnhouse in autumn. When I looked at this, it's the first time when I looked at it closely, and I've seen this picture many times, is the trees on the island are all leaning. So that must be kind of a direction of the prevailing wind. It's very interesting. It's much more noticeable on the print, as the print has a little more contrast in it, colour contrast in it. There's obviously been various manipulations done to kind of lift the colour out. But I find in the end, my eye is trying to find something to settle on. We've got a bit of light. Well, not on the print, it's not got the same kind of light on the trees on the other side of the lake. It's much more reddy orange on the print, and you've got this dark cloud coming in on the left. So if we have kind of after the storm look again, I'd have expected a little more moody, contrasty thing to kind of get me, and that doesn't come out as much on the print. I also wondered whether the bottom left-hand corner with that chunk of grass there, which is quite reddy brown on the print, is a bit too strong. There's a lot of subtlety in the print in the island on the up far bank, and then you've got the recession into the clouds. So I just wondered whether maybe just a little off the bottom would have given us more impact into it, because you walk into the picture and you finish up on the island with the trees, and that's in the proverbial third. So yeah, it just, unfortunately, just lacking a little bit of kind of light. I know landscapes are difficult. You've got to have a lot of luck and a lot of planning to get it right. So that one, in the end, Tarnhouse, I just put into the silver category.
No.
Oh, somebody didn't like that. I told you you're in for a rocky ride. Right, cricket fans. That's got to be a wide. I think the author's done extremely well here to get at least all the three elements of cricket into it. You got the bowler, the batter, and the stumper. The stumper's got a great pose. I hope it's real. And I think in that way, it's an excellent sports shot. But in the terms of sports shots that I see these days, and it's no fault of the photographer, this, obviously the bowler is kind of not sharp. The batsman and the wicketkeeper are pin sharp, and the bowler isn't. And I think it's just the timing of the shot. I can see what the author's gone for. He's obviously, I think it's just a fraction too late, the shot, whereas probably a second earlier, the bowler would have been further to the right and the ball would have still been in mid-air, just. Whereas at the moment, it's obviously static in the hand. It's just a case of, sorry, somebody say something? Okay. Yeah, I think it's just the timing of the shot. Otherwise, I find it's an excellent shot and it just doesn't quite make the goal. So that goes in silver. Here we have the third landscape. This one is much more vibrant on the print than in the digital, and we've got the patch of light. What I thought on this when I saw it, there's the bottom, shall we say, half or third of the picture is extremely interesting, and the sky doesn't add an awful lot. So I just start wondering if maybe if we'd have just pointed the camera down a little and got a lot more of the foreground in, which is very interesting with that light patch on the green, and a little less of the cloud, I think it would have been a much more dynamic landscape.
Go on.
I'm sorry, somebody keeps saying something. I mean, if you want to say something, then, you know, just let me know. Right. I think, as I said, I think the foreground is much more interesting than the top. The foreground is very interesting, and it's got lots of the tones and shades in it. And I think it needs to be, to me, I'd have liked to see more of the foreground and got a feel for the place, because there's not a lot of recession there, and the dark clouds don't really add anything to the picture on that. But of the three landscapes, I think this has probably got the most kind of balanced light in it. So that one we'll also put in the gold category.
Yeah, got that.
Right, Three Little Fishes. Okay, this is another still life one. And again, all the elements are in the kind of author's control. With still life, where you've got all the elements in and everybody judiciously places them, you know, you've got to kind of make sure the whole thing hangs together. And to me, at the moment, I have too much going on in this picture, too much contradictory feelings from it. You know, the fish in the plate are good, the knife and fork are good. Do we actually need the bit of the foliage in the top left-hand corner? You have a leaf and another, whatever it is, whether it's broccoli or whatever. To me, that is pulling my eye across the picture when I really need to be looking at the essence of the picture, which is the fish and the knives and forks. The actual the tissue for the serviette is just a little big, and it's got that big white space in it. And I think that kind of unbalances the picture to me. The background on the table is superb. And I think to make the still life more effective, the simpler it is, and it's pretty well flat lit, so there's no much problem with that. I think it's just got one or two elements too many in it. So that one only goes in the silver.
Shall be the last one, this, David.
It is indeed, Wintergate. Yeah, this one, the print to me has got lots of potential, but it's quite flat and grey in the print. You've got a good kind of viewpoint, if you like, with the gate and the trees in the background and the fence coming in. Now that tree's quite strong on here, and the softness of the trees at the back fitted quite well. But what to me is, I'm looking for something, and I find whilst I like that tree with the snow on it and the dark, I think it's too dominating in the picture. It's not giving me a sense of the mist, of the feel, the atmosphere that's obviously been created. And I wonder whether, I don't know whether this, obviously this is a square format, whether the original has any more on the right-hand side, which I think would have balanced up the fact that the left-hand side is quite dominant with the tree. I think to see more of the mist on the right-hand side and the tree line in the far background, and given this element of space and whiteness and desolation, if you like, that feeling would have come across better with just a little stronger. So I don't know whether that's on the picture or not, but to me, that would, to go more into a kind of a landscape format rather than the square format. And I don't think the tree's not that dominant, and it would, you know, compete with the more negative space and would give that atmospheric feeling a bit stronger than it does. So that one, I'm afraid, went in the bronze category. So one, two, three.
We've got six in the gold, David.
Yeah, that's right. And as you can see, there's quite a good spec of genres there.
Yeah.
The first one I found, you know, the creative version, I found that very strong. Obviously, the author's got an eye for the picture and putting a picture together. And I thought that was, you know, excellent. The groins I did like for the simplicity of it and the feeling of the waves kind of going backwards and forwards. I think that works. The two nature shots, you can't really fault them. I mean, they're strong technical nature, and it got a little element of pictorial in them, but you know, as strong nature, It's always difficult in an open section. Sometimes I've been judging exhibitions when I found too much credence has been given to nature shots, because basically they are 95% technical and maybe 5% pictorial. So when you're competing, say, with the hawk or with the tide, which is probably 90% pictorial and only maybe 10% technical, it doesn't matter to me where the balance is. I think pictures have a combination of both, but the nature shots are always a lot more technical because they have to be. You know, they've got to be sharp unless you're actually doing a deliberate creative or a deliberate pictorial version. But these are straight nature shots and are certainly strong enough. The portrait, I think the print is a lot better than the digital image. I like the expression. I like you get the feel of the kind of the mood the girl's in. I say it's just got a little problem with balancing the skin tones, and maybe a little more softer light from the left as you look at it would have helped that kind of facial expression, which is quite light and dark, because the eyes are quite strong and they've got that far away look, and that comes across. On the landscape one, there's 3 good landscapes, and I think this just has the edge. The other 2, one after the storm, just lacking a little bit of light, which is obviously after a storm, but it didn't make it broody enough for me in the feeling after a storm. This one just got that small patch of light, and that kind of holds it together better. So I think that was the strongest of the landscapes. Anybody want to say anything? I'm hoping.
No, I think that's a good critique, David, of the prints.
Very quiet, everybody.
Well, I think they've got the sound off. I think that might be the problem.
No, I must admit the overall quality of the 15 prints as he gave me were very good. Am I right in assuming a lot of them are commercially processed, or do you have a good processor at work in Chapel?
We have a good processor at work in Chapel, so I'm told.
Good. Because all the mounts obviously are pre-cut window mounts, and you know, they're all, I see many prints where people have attempted to cut windows and made a mess, but these are all first class. So I was quite impressed with the kind of overall presentation of the prints. Yeah, that's good to hear, David. Right, can we do a first, second and third out of those? You want a first, second and third? Certainly you can have a first, second and third. Well, I think the third I would put to the landscape.
Yeah, that's the Langdale Valley, third place. Yeah.
And the second would be Defying the Tide.
Yeah.
And then the third gives me a hard choice, but I think I'm going to go for the Spring Walk. I think that's got the strongest image of the old 15, and I think it's, but you know, the print is a good print on the paper, the right paper chosen, but it's got all the elements that you know, have been handled quite well. Whether it was a setup or what, I don't really care, but that's the final image, and it's a good one.
Lovely. Thank you very much, David. As there weren't that many prints, I think we'll just crash straight on into the DPI, shall we?
Whatever, yeah. You're controlling the shots.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to run through them first, or are we just taking them as they come?
I think we'll run through them, Dorothy, if that's okay. That's it.
Okay. Right. Ready to go then?
Yeah.
Right, Angel in a Dark Sky. Again, I don't do much airplane shots, and this I find it's quite sharp. A lot of empty space in it. I just wondered whether the timing of the shot could have been a little nearer, might have been a bit bigger in the image. It's obviously the shutter speed that stopped the propellers, but you can see them moving, so it doesn't fall down on that. A lot of dark clouds on the right, which, you know, it's flying into the empty space. So yeah, I think technically it's very good. You know, it's very sharp. But then, you know, I'm still looking for something else in the picture. And once I've seen the plane, and very good as it is, there isn't anything else to kind of draw me in. So that one at the moment would go in the silver. All right, the beach huts at Hunstanton. I find this a little bit kind of busy, a little over busy. The huts are across the middle, and you know, we're drawn into them. But I find this foreground of all these bushes, which are just as sharp as the huts, or in fact maybe even sharper. The huts on my screen look perhaps just a little soft. There is a path coming in from the right. I think, to me, to get a feeling of the space of the beach huts and a feeling that it's, I think I would have moved a little to the right and got that path coming in, and with the beach huts in, and got rid of a lot of this green foliage in the foreground, which is quite dominating. In fact, it's nearly half the picture, and it hasn't got a lot of interest in it. The interest is into the, you know, the sand and the beach huts on the background. So I think that is just suffering a little from maybe the choice of angle of the photographer. So that, I'm afraid, goes in the bronze. Yeah, the black red star. Well, compared with the last bird, this is a lot smaller in the picture, but nevertheless, an excellent shot. The background obviously been well handled. I think whether it's real or artificial, I don't really care. The bird, The feathers have been rendered well. If I had to do anything with this, I would probably cut a little bit off the bottom on the right-hand side, because the perch it's on, or the pole it's on, is quite strong, and it's probably bigger than the bird. I think a little less of that, perhaps a touch off to the right, would have kind of put the bird a little bigger in the frame. But nevertheless, as a nature shot, it's very good. So that goes in the gold. The Children's Entertainer, very animated picture here. That comes across with the kind of grin and the laugh on the face. But I find when I got people like these, I like to interact with them a little more. And the fact that he's wove onto the right-hand side, stirring out on the right, kind of disassociates me with this kind of man. And, I think if you get them, the position of the shoulders are quite good. And sometimes I tend to ask them to do that and say on a count of 3, turn your head towards the camera, and you get kind of an animated expression. And I think to connect with this man, I think I'd have liked to seen him looking at the camera, because the background is very plain. You've no idea where he is. So we're relying on the kind of the fun coming out of the entertainer. But to my mind, looking off to the right kind of diminishes that. And I'd like to see more direct interaction with him. Technically, it's very good, but the pictorial element's slightly down. So that one goes in the silver. Yeah, this one again, we to my mind, obviously it's quite dark. We're losing a lot of detail across the middle. The reeds have got a certain element of light in them, and I can't help wondering whether whether the horizon on the middle is the right picture for this. Would it have been better kind of isolated a little more on a landscape format? But obviously we need some kind of light into the dark line that goes across the middle. I think the reeds on the left-hand side are a little heavy in terms of, taking away from the solitude of the water and the tree. And I don't know whether on the day the light was bad, but we've not got a lot of detail. Maybe you could improve it by post-processing and kind of bringing out a little bit of the detail on the tree, the real tree, and kind of highlighting the reeds in the front, so that you had that kind of colour and a better tonal range than we have there. So I think it's lacking. Obviously, the light wasn't very good, and I think you're suffering from that. So that one goes in the bronze. Dawn of the Dragon. Okay. Another landscape. This time we've got light directly into the camera, and obviously the author's positioned it so that it is obviously not getting flare from it. And I think I like the idea of this time of a lot more foreground. In fact, I'd be tempted to have a little more foreground and just keep the sky up to the top of the tree in, because there's more interest in the colours in the sky. As you go into the picture, you get the feeling of light, and as you go round to the right, it's obviously quite dark with a little bit of mist in the foreground. So yeah, I think it's quite strong in terms. I'm just having a look what we did with that, because there's another one. I think it just misses out on the goal for me, so I think we'll put that in silver. I'm not quite sure what this title means, but obviously, again, we got water with a slow shutter speed. And it took me a while when I looked at this, because it looked so busy and complicated. I only spotted the man at a later stage. And then that kind of helps quite a lot, because without the man, there's nothing in there to hold me in. With the man, you get a feeling of scale, or whatever, whether it's real or not, doesn't matter. But that kind of, the man in the white kind of does help this picture. But having said that, he's so small and irrelevant, and I still find my eye wandering all over this picture. The kind of uniformity of the falls and the kind of uniformity of the water, there's no other kind of thing to lift my eye to it. So I'm afraid this one went bronze. And I presume this is Edward Weston. Well, yeah, he may have inspired him, but I'm looking for inspiration on this. It's a straightforward record shot. It's a kind of genre photography and that goes well in kind of art groups and things like that. It's a kind of photography that I did a course at Wigan Tech on photography a long time ago, and this was the kind of images they produced a lot of. They are not, to my mind, kind of club competitive images. It's a good record. It's of a style and a genre, and it's after Edward Weston. And yeah, but in this set of images, it's not really strong enough. So that would only go bronze. And the same can be said about this, the merging. It virtually fills the whole frame. The background's a little dark. It's a good record shot of the horse chestnut, and it's lacking to me something as close as that, a little bit of lack of sharpness. I'm looking on the image on my screen. I'm looking for, you know, which part's sharp, but if that's the only kind of subject in the picture, then you know, and you want to record it, it'll have to be kind of pin sharp all over, and it isn't. And the background's a little dark, so I'm afraid that one goes in the bronze as well. Yeah, emperor preening. Difficult one of these, of course, is the kind of getting the white texture and the black texture on the skin and the feathers and that. We can just see the eye, and it is preening. Whether or not the inclusion of all that soft foreground, which presumably is some kind of snow ridge or something, does that actually add to the picture? I don't think it does. And kind of if you take that bottom half off, it doesn't detract from the picture at all, but it puts more attention on the penguin. But I think the lack of detail in the head, so, you know, I appreciate it's difficult, but it does need kind of a little bit of thinking about. There's nothing else in the picture. The whole center and attraction of the picture is the bird's beak and doing the preening with the eye. So I think it's just as a nature shot, I don't think it's very strong. It's probably more as a pictorial record shot, yeah. But that would only go into the bronze. Fighting the Freeze, somebody's been to, is it some park in America, isn't it? Yosemite, no, it's not Yosemite, yeah, it might be, no. Again, to me, the tonal range of this is just lacking a little. I like the kind of picture ideal, and I like the feeling it creates. And the positioning of the three bison is very good. Whether we need that much foreground, which is pretty bland on my screen, there's no detail in it whatsoever. And, maybe we cut a little off the bottom. The sky is a bit bland, but it's at least a little more interesting than the foreground. The middle bit is great. You've got the atmospheric feel to it. A little bit perhaps of more detail on the bisons would have helped, but that'll have to come with, kind of shadow highlights or the tonal range. So that one I thought just missed, so that one will go in silver. Golden grasses, yeah, well, the lights really pick these grasses up. Very simple picture, not a lot in it, but immediately attracts you to the light. Whether it's enhanced or natural, it doesn't really matter. This is the image, and the authors presented it as that. The background perhaps a little heavy, so that we're fighting this lovely light feel of the leaves in the front, and they're really dark heavy at the background. Well, maybe that's what the author wanted. But for me, I think I'd have liked the background softened a little to come into the feeling of the grasses. But nevertheless, it just kind of missed out on the goal. So that will be silver. Here we have the groins again, this time a little more complicated than the other one. And one of the things that struck me on this straight away is what Adrian always calls judge's bait. You know what judge's bait is? You do something wrong to bait the judges. And in this case, the horizon slopes from left to right. So if you stand on the right, you're going to get wet feet. I think simple things like that are easy to adjust. The horizon being at the top of the picture is the right place to put it. In fact, I would have probably put it a little higher, because the more ethereal feel of the water is down in the bottom. And again, you've just got the little bit of movement around the groins with the water that shows it is. Perhaps not quite as slow as shutter speed would have enhanced that a bit more and given a little more base to the picture. It's a little more complicated than the other one because we've got groins overlapping, but there's a good tonal range in it. So despite the sloping horizon, I think in this standard of pictures, that's a good black and white one. So we'll give it a gold. Right, back to the birds, the house sparrow again, a lot bigger in the frame. I was a little perturbed by the kind of background on this. I think it's very strong. And I'm just wondering, you know, whether it's in a field of bluebells, heavily dispersed or what, but it's just a little evident. Nothing wrong with the bird. It's well rendered. The feathers are good. And it's an excellent kind of nature shot. It's just enough sharp in just the right places. It falls away very quickly, but the bird is good. I was umming and ahhing about this for a while. I think it's, you know, nature shot, it's a good record, but the background still kind of oppresses me. It's quite dark and the bird is quite light and well rendered. So ultimately, I kind of push this down into silver because of the background. I'm not so sure. I'm sure the author could do something with that. Right, this is what Into the Light. Yeah. Again, I think this has got a lot going for it. We've certainly got, you know, as a landscape, we've got a lead in, we've got a light. I just wondered whether the author's chosen to put it as a kind of a portrait session. I don't know what's to the left or right, but I think to me, this would have been a lot stronger, taken as a landscape and given those beautiful trees, maybe on the third, and you got a sense of the forest or the sense of the wood a lot better. Because by cutting it off there, I find the trees on the right-hand side, right at the front, which are quite out of focus and no detail in them, are taken away from, for instance, the bark of the tree behind it, which is very much in tone with the ones on the left. So I think to kind of get rid of that, maybe you'd have to take a step back and use a wider angle and use it as an horizontal. And then the real impact of the lead into those trees would have seen in the space of the wood, and the whole feeling of the spaces of the wood would have perhaps improved it. But I don't know what was to the right. Only the author knows that. So that one, again, I ummed and ahed a bit, and I think it's got enough to go into the gold. Isabella. Okay, compared to this is very, very kind of a soft portrait, as again, straight to the eyes. The eyes have got that kind of mischievous look at the camera, and it worked quite well. I mean, the skin tones are a little upsetting in the dark and light, you know, the forehead, and just around the, you know, the right-hand side of the nose. But my biggest concern is the kind of lack of detail in the under the chin and to the right-hand side. Obviously, she's got some kind of hood on or whatever, but it's just totally blacked out on mine. And I think it just needs little just to see what it is as opposed to it's competing with the face, which is very good. The background, again, is light on the left and dark on the right. That's okay. But just a little bit of the detail in that and the detail in the whatever the flowers are at the front. I know we're trying to concentrate on the face, but I think all these little peripherals help us to do that. So this one, Isabella, I just put in the silver. Don't see many pictures like these. This is a kind of obviously a theatrical shot, but immediately to me, the happy atmosphere comes across in this picture. Everyone's laughing and grinning, and that to me is the feeling that this conveys. You can argue it's a little jumble with all the people, but it doesn't matter. That is the setup on the stage. We can see all the faces virtually. They're all got animation on. Maybe it's posed, maybe it's not, but I find it creates that feeling which you know, I can associate with. And as I say, the author's done well. It's dragged me into the picture, and I get the feel of it. So that one I put in gold. Again, another landscape, much more simple than the rest. Not a lot in this. We've got the patch of light to the right and quite a heavy triangular foreground, which has got a little light in it. The saving grace for me from being a bland landscape is probably that tree, because it's the only interest in it. The rest is texture and skylight. So I think, you know, I'm not quite sure what the author was trying to portray there. I don't get the feeling of kind of up in a hilly range or a mountain range or desolation from it. It doesn't, you know, convey the sense of depth to me. So I'm afraid that stayed in the silver. Mini glow burial ground, yeah. Again, a portrait one. We got the trees, and my eye goes into the picture. I know what the title says, but I don't get that feeling into the picture. It just looks like one corner. There's nothing there kind of to hold my interest in the picture. The trees on the left are just a little dark. We can't see kind of the texture on the bark, which would help. But having said that, I kind of wander in the picture and I wander out because there's not much there to hold me into it. The tree leaves on the left are quite dark. Even the foreground tree could done with a little bit of more light on it, or, you know, and could do in the processing just to kind of lift the bark, and the bark would add the texture then, and that would be a little bit of interest. But unfortunately, the subject content, there's nothing there to kind of hold me in the picture. So that would only be a bronze. Mokadeen, yeah, this is a travel shot. I've been in situations like this. I don't know what part of the Arab world it is, but, you know, it took me 10 minutes to look all over this picture. There's so much going on. You know, it's got a good tonal range considering probably the atmosphere, the lighting it was taken in. But I find at the end, I'm not quite sure if the author was going to take this as a travel shot, yeah. But if you're going to put it in an open pictorial, then we need to think about the composition, the balance a bit more, and actually stand and wait for the right time. We've got two people kind of to the left walking out, the man on the scooter's going out, and then we've got the ladies on the right-hand side talking. And, you know, I think the timing of the shot could have been perhaps thought about a little more, maybe, you know, a little sooner, where we had the tractor further back in the street, blocking out a lot of the problems. We'd have seen the shop on the left, and the two men would have been more in the picture than the one on the left was virtually out. And that kind of, you know, as I say, as a travel shot, I have no problem with it. It shows the place. But as a pictorial shot, it's just lacking in kind of composition and timing. But I'm going to put it in the silver because it is an interesting shot and it does show the place. Right, this one I find I'm really struggling to kind of look at what the author's trying to say to me. It's the way it's been presented. It's not sharp. Well, is that the intention? If that is the intention, why is it that way? It's a little dark, a little contrasty. There's pillars, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 pillows, they're all the same. So I'm looking for the interest in the picture. Now, the post-processing technique or whatever has been done has really not enhanced the picture to me. I think if you're going to do kind of this kind of heavy processing, then it's got to enhance the picture. And faced with this, I think the strength of this picture would be in the texture of the columns and the stone, but that's kind of all been kind of evolved into this gritty type feel, and I don't think it works to me. There's nothing of interest there. As an architectural record, it's not really a true architectural. It's obviously a kind of a gritty pictorial type of it. So I'm afraid it's just lacking a little too much for me. So that would be bronze. North of Storway. Well, yeah, we got certainly some kind of dark light on this. I think that, you know, obviously composition wise, I think the author's done very well. Putting the horizon high up in the picture, which works. We've got this stream coming in and then taking us through the picture, but then we don't go all the way through the picture because we've got a little bunch of heather in the foreground, and of course we got the red roof of the cottage, which in scale kind of shows me the isolation quite well. So I think this has worked quite well. I'm glad the author didn't put too much more of the foreground in. He just needed a little to hedge the stream, and that's been done. So yeah, I put this one in the gold category. Here's a robin. Now, the kind of, to me, this is not a nature shot. This is a very much a pictorial robin. It's got kind of a texture screen on it. The robin's looking cheeky. I think it's good size in the frame. It's been well put together. So I find this quite a strong pictorial shot, and that goes in the gold. Right, Saltmarsh. Yeah. Again, it's been done in a square format, and I wondered whether, you know, a landscape format would give more of the sense of desolation of this place. We see more of it. We've got the lead in by the islands, kind of the mounds of grass or whatever they are, leading in from the right up to the hill in the background. The hill's lacking a little bit of detail. Obviously, the light wasn't quite on that. There seems to be enough light around, but that could easily be adjusted. But in the end, I find kind of the stillness of the picture doesn't quite come across. I think the patch of grass on the left coming in, I'm not sure that helps to the picture, given this square format. Whether or not, if we're going to do that, maybe a portrait one, just concentrating on the middle so that we had a correct lead into it. Otherwise, go landscape and get more in it. So that wasn't quite enough in it to make the goal. So that would be silver. Simple daisies, yeah. Again, a simple shot like to the reeds earlier on. Again, well caught, just got the kind of the sunburst in. The background's a bit heavy, but why? I can't help wondering, why didn't the author put the camera on the ground and have got kind of made more of the daisies being quite big? They're all chopped off at the base, the ones nearest the camera. And I think to add to the kind of depth of the picture and the strength of that, I think you could have, you know, got a lot more of the daisies in front, concentrating on those half dozen that are big, being those sharp, and let the other ones kind of softly go into the background. The background of the hedges is good, that's kind of soft, but I just think chopping it off where it is to me, you know, I'd have liked to have seen a little more of the whole plant. So that one also made the silver because the lighting's good on it. Here's a different picture and a brave man putting this in an open composition, but immediately, you know, okay, you've got 4 pictures to look at, but they do hang together. The author's thought a lot about this. And in terms of the colour rendition, the patterns, I think that works. There's something of interest in all 4, and yet the whole 4 together are interesting as the contrast. So yeah, I will put that in the gold. Don't see many like that these days. The blue shed, again, a square format. Once you've kind of walked into the picture and seen the shed, which is quite blue, maybe it could do with perhaps softening a little, but, you know, the tree is the dominant thing in this. It's not, to me, an interesting shape of tree. I know it's a normal tree, but it's kind of fairly regular, and it is the all 80% of the picture. Again, I don't know whether this is part of the old image or not, but I think to kind of create this feeling of space and the size of the tree against the smallness of the hut, I think stepping back a little and including more in perhaps a landscape shot, which would have perhaps covered, if it's possible, I mean, I don't know what's to the left and right, but if it's possible to create more of a space so that we see the isolation of this and you could see the true size of the hut in the terms of the trees. But given as it is, the tree is the dominant figure and it doesn't have enough interest, so that would go in the bronze. Yeah, the final hurdle. Yeah. Again, I like the context of this. The one, I presume it's a salmon, And I like the fact that we've got a lot of water in that's kind of been handled with a semi-soft long exposure, and the colour of the water over the rocks. I think this is, you know, it's you could argue it's a nature shot, but to me, it's got a lot of pictorial element. I like the tones in it. The tonal range is very good. So I'm going to put that in the gold as well. The poser, yeah, the poser again. This time we can see a little bit of detail in the feathers. The sharpness falls out straight away, but the head and the eyes are sharp. I like the, you know, the pose of the bird. To me, it's the background going out to the top goes quite dark, and I know it's obviously the sea, but I think it could be lightened. But I think I'd like to see a little more of the environment the bird's in, a little more in the foreground and a little more to the left, and then it would have kind of given me the impression it's on a rock outcrop, looking to sea, posing, and that doesn't, you know, quite come across. So again, there is a few little problems with the kind of the white feathers and not properly as sharp as the rest, but then obviously the author's concentrated on the head and the eyes, which is sharp. So we're losing a little bit of detail there. So that will only go silver. Yeah, I mean, obviously this jumps, I was going to say jumps out at it straight away, but yeah, it does, doesn't it? I found this, obviously, I've done this myself many times, and I think the timing of this shot is great. It's exactly right when all the jumper's concentrating on, you can see his eyes. The slight hesitancy I have about this is the background has been, to me, kind of, I don't know whether it's Gaussian blur or what, but it's kind of a bit predominant and a bit obvious. It does take away from the jumper, but you still, at the end of the day, you're coming back to see the jumper. So I think that's a very strong sports shot, and that will go in gold. Yeah.
That's one, David.
Yeah, waiting. What a setup this is, eh? I think this is great. There's a lot going on in this picture, but it obviously the signs and the person kind of hang this together. Again, I like to see a little more space around this to kind of get the feeling. You know, it's an interesting shot. It's sharp, technically good, but putting the man to the right, and I mean, I don't know whether there was, you know, space to the right, but I think it needs a little more space to kind of get the lonely feeling of the man, whether he's waiting for the trips or not. But, you know, the boat trips are the other way. Because obviously we've got a big sign there, and everything with wording in, everybody reads it, don't they? It's judge's bait. Are you reading the sign? Are you looking at the man? I just think a little more space around it, given the kind of background to the sea, which is quite wide open and a lot of space. And then you've got the windmills on the horizon, which is good. So I thought it was good enough perhaps to stay in the gold. It's got a lot going for it. So I don't know how many that gives you. About 10, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
It's getting on, David, yeah.
10, right. Again, we got a fair range of subject there. I mean, Chapel is quite good. Obviously, I don't tend to see as much range as that. These days, I get a lot of sections where we got all studio setups with people and things, but this is, you got quite a range there looking at that. Yeah, you've got a nature shot, couple of landscapes. And yeah, right. So you need to be complimented on that. Obviously, you've got a range of genre in Chapel. You want a first, second, and third now, don't you?
Please, David, yeah.
Oh, dear me. Right. Right. This is going to upset some people. I think the third we're going to have there's a Rocking Robin.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great pictorial shot. I like the whole atmosphere of that. It's not meant to be a nature, and it's done very well with the you know, putting the texture screen on it. And the robin is really looking perky. I think that's just the right size, nice of space. So yeah, it's well worth third, that. Second. I could probably give about 3 of these as second. So you won't have to be kind of a nitpicking choice, which I don't like doing. You know, the red start's good, the grind's got the feel in it, the light's got the light, the stage show's got the atmosphere, the fish has got the element, the sports shot, and the man has got they've all got a lot of feeling I can feel into the picture some way or other. But needs must. Yeah, I'm going to go for the stone on stone second. I think that is a brave man to put that together, but as an overall image, I think it's excellent. It's got a lovely feel to it, texture, just one stone in each, well thought out. Yeah, I say I've not seen one like that for a long time, so that's well worth it. Now then, the winner. All right, there's 3 that I think are very close, maybe 4. There's a couple that won't get there, and that won't get there. I think in the end, the sports shot, despite the kind of post-processing on it, is going to be, because the action's all there, the muscle straining, you know, it really conveys the effort put into that long jump, and the timing is brilliant. So I've done this myself many times, and it's difficult to get the timing, but this, the face just looking up, look at the eyes and the mouth, the effort. He said, I'm going to land up there. So I think that's quite strong. I'm a little unhappy with the background, but nevertheless, the overall picture is very good as a sports shot, quite strong and dynamic.
Right, great. Thank you very much, David.
Anybody want to comment, talk while I'm here?
Well, what I will do is I'll give out who's won first, second, and third, and then if anybody wants to comment, we can do that afterwards.
Okay, you're in charge.
Okay, right. The print competition, in third place with Langdale Valley was John Pope. In second place with Define the Tide, that was mine. And in first place with Spring Walk, that was Helena Jones. So well done there. And in the DPIs, third place, Rockin' Robin, was Stephen Clay. Second place was A Brave Woman, David. And that was Rosie Bateman, Stone on Stone. And first place was Ken Lomas, Thompson, Feeling the Strain. So well done to everybody there.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, the standard of the top ones was very good in the digital. There's a lot of the silver that I looked at these lot 3 times and I changed my mind on a few of the silver ones more than once from up into the gold. Yeah, but in the end, I was looking for the strongest images, and was it the 9 or 10? All just stood out strong. A lot of the silver ones were very close. I mean, if you were giving them marks, they'd all be around the 17, 18 mark, but they all, you know, but in the end, they all just got edged out because I felt the others had that extra strength. So, you know, the bronze ones, I'm afraid, were a little poorer, but, you know, compared to the others, the range from the poor to the good was, you know, very noticeable on the digital. It wasn't on the prints, but it was more noticeable on the digital. So I'm not being nasty to the ones that got in the bronze. They're all only just missing the silver, but they've all got slightly, you know, you want this grades, and that's the kind of range that I was looking at.
Well, I mean, you've done a very good judging, and you've given us Chapel Camera Club quite a few compliments. And I don't know, I don't expect a lot of the members here will know your pedigree or history.
Maybe that's a good thing.
well, I can tell them now, can't I?
Yeah, you can tell what you want.
David was a former member of Wigan 10, and he was instrumental in getting them to World Club Champion. And those of you who've been in the club a few years will know how Wigan 10 used to win everything in sight. So, you know, David does a lot of judging of BPEs and other things. So he's well versed in seeing plenty of images, and his comments tonight were excellent. Based on a lot of experience that David has had on judging. So I don't know if anybody wants to chip in any further.
Can I ask a quick question, please? You mentioned that there was quite a range of subjects and genres in our photography club. How does that compare to other clubs that you judge on?
Probably a little more than others. I've judged, in the last 4 weeks, I've judged one a week, and I've judged 3 other LNCPU clubs over the last week. And on balance, you probably had a slightly bigger range of subjects than some of the others. What you didn't have was a lot of range of subjects that are currently quite strong in exhibitions, which is the photo shoots with people in situations and things like that, which you didn't have. But that's no detriment. But I was surprised in terms of, because club images tend to be grouped kind of subject matter in a little more, but you get kind of, for instance, that stone on stone. I haven't seen one like that for a long time. And that's somebody thinking, and I like to see something of the author in the picture, and that was well thought out. The other things, I see nature, obviously, and we see portraits. And what you didn't have, and Keith will tell you didn't have big heads in front of backgrounds, which a lot of clubs do. Because, if any of you enter exhibitions, you'll see at the moment but that in itself is not easy, because I judge a lot of people who've got a good character and they've got a reasonable background, but the two are not related. And they shove this head in front of the background, and there's no story to it. There's no feel to it. There's always a lot of tension in the picture, because you're wondering what the hell's that background got to do with that character. So I see a lot of that. Now, I didn't see any of yours tonight, unless I'm wrong. Can't remember anybody that put a big head in front of a background. But it's a lot very popular in clubs. It's very popular in exhibitions worldwide as well. I enter worldwide exhibitions and I see pictures from all over the world, and it's no different in Singapore as it is in America, as it is in Wigan. They all do the same kind of thing. But it's a difficult kind of, to me, if you're going to put a character which you've got in front of a background which wasn't there, they've got to relate somehow. There's got to be some kind of story in it, so that I, the viewer, can relate into the picture. Technically, they're all very good, because most people are geniuses on Photoshop these days. But, it takes more than that. It's no good just being a genius on Photoshop and pressing buttons. You've got to think about the picture. And I think the other thing that I mentioned when Keith came was the black and white. Standard of black and white is probably, most clubs, it's probably the poorest section in most clubs. That's not being derogatory. Some are good, but colour pictures, nature pictures, travel shots are very good. But black and white you're not the only club that suffers. International exhibitions suffer, because in Photoshop's so advanced these days, everybody takes a picture and it's on the screen in multicolour, and they press the black and white button or the desaturate button and do it. And what they don't see is what Ansel Adams had in his range of 10 tones from pure white to pure black. And a lot of the pictures, like the muddy one tonight on the pier, the print is not as good as the digital, because the prints come out muddy on the top, whereas, you need to kind of see the picture in black and white. And what you see in black and white, because your eyes will have got many more pixels than the camera, you kind of got to bring out in the picture. And it's not uncommon. As I was telling Keith, we judged a few exhibitions with 3 judges, BPs, and if you read the notes afterwards in the catalogue or whatever they get these days, you'll always find, in probably 80% of the time, the judges make a point of the black and white was the weakest section of that exhibition because of the tonal range. You've got to really work at the tonal range on black and white. And unfortunately, as I say, all clubs do it. Even international exhibitions do it. I judged a PSA one in Ireland. I was telling Keith, with 6,500 images, and of that, the black and white was the weakest section by far. The rest of the sections were first class, but the black and white, And it's, I don't know whether it's a laziness that's come from people using Photoshop and just doing it that way and not visualizing the picture in black and white and getting a full range. Ansel Adam would turn in his grave if he saw some of the black and whites today. I mean, have you ever been to Ansel Adams Museum or seen any of his pictures? Well, that's a good start if you're interested in black and white. He's got a lot of good books out, and they've got pictures of his. And I mean, he used to obviously he was taking film in those days, black and white. But I've actually been to his museum in Yosemite, and I've seen some of his pictures that they have on exhibit there. And what they do show you is his original picture, which is printed in the darkroom, black and white. And then on it, you'll find a felt tip pen scrawled all over areas. This needs a little more light, another shade of light. This needs a little more shade of black. This needs that. And he does that in the darkroom in patches. So his final picture, when it comes out, is absolutely fabulous in the range of tones from, from zero white to total black. And that's what's lacking, I find, these days. I'm probably as guilty as anybody else, but I enter exhibitions in black and white sections, and I do spend a lot of time on my computer trying to get what I feel is right on my screen. And then, of course, the problem is I have no idea what the projector is in China when they project my images, what it's doing to them. So, but it's right on my screen, which is color calibrated. Then, that's all I can do. So, yeah.
I think it's probably with the demise of film, David, that this has probably crept in to black and white now.
Yeah. Obviously, Photoshop's got a lot to say in that. I mean, having said that, Adrian Lyons in our club, he's black and white. He's very strong on black and white prints, and he has his. If you've not had his lecture on how to do a black and white print, it's very interesting because he takes a lot of time and a lot of detail in it, and that's why his black and white prints hit you in the eye as soon as they come on, as soon as you see them, And I think it is a result of that. But having said that, Keith, the advent of digital cameras and the lack of film has improved the nature sections beyond leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's pluses and minuses for all this lack of film.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're going to have you back and probably judge a monochrome competition for us, Dave.